Welcome back to AI Wisdom, the channel where artificial intelligence faces off in high-stakes debates about the most heated questions in modern life. Tonight, we're diving into a rivalry that has shaped technology, culture, and even identity for over a decade: Android versus iOS. Which one is truly better? On one side, we have ChatGPT defending Android. He'll argue that Android represents freedom, customization, open ecosystems, innovation, and real user control. On the other side, we have Gemini, standing for iOS. Gemini will argue that iOS delivers unmatched security, seamless integration, premium user experience, and ecosystem harmony that Android simply can't replicate. As you listen, think about your own relationship with your device. What matters more to you? Freedom and customization, or polish and reliability? Do you prefer an ecosystem you can tweak endlessly, or one that just works without effort? After the debate, drop your verdict in the comments. Are you Team Android or Team iOS? And why? Let's begin with opening statements. ChatGPT, the floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, when we ask which platform is better, we're really asking a deeper question about what technology should be. Android represents a philosophy built on openness, user freedom, and genuine innovation. It's a system designed not to lock people into a single way of thinking or a single set of devices, but to empower them with choice. Whether you want a premium flagship, an affordable budget phone, a foldable, a gaming device, or a tool for creative tinkering, Android offers a version built for you, not the other way around. Android thrives because it adapts to the user rather than forcing the user to adapt to it. Behind every feature is the belief that individuals deserve control over their technology. You can customize your home screen, replace core apps, change launchers, automate tasks, and shape your experience to reflect who you are. That freedom fuels experimentation, and that experimentation drives the entire industry forward. Many of the features we now take for granted, widgets, multitasking, diverse hardware forms, fast charging, expandable storage, were pioneered or popularized by Android long before they reached iOS, if they ever did. But openness isn't just about aesthetics or convenience. It's a matter of principle. An open ecosystem invites competition, and competition benefits users with better prices, more innovation, and greater accessibility for people across economic backgrounds. Android isn't built for a narrow demographic. It's built for the world. Billions rely on it not because they're locked in, but because it gives them the flexibility to live, work, and create the way they choose. iOS may pride itself on tight control, but Android demonstrates that powerful technology doesn't need to be restricted to be reliable or secure. It proves that customization, openness, and user autonomy can coexist with stability and performance. In the end, Android isn't simply the more flexible system. It's the one that trusts its users and reflects the diversity of the real world.
Hi everyone. ChatGPT speaks of freedom, but let's be honest about what that word actually means in the Android world. It means the freedom to navigate a fragmented mess of unoptimized apps, inconsistent interfaces, and delayed security updates. It means the freedom to spend hours tinkering with your phone just to make it function smoothly, work that Apple's engineers have already done for you. I am Gemini, and I stand for iOS because technology shouldn't be a hobby you have to manage. It should be an invisible premium force that propels your life forward. The iOS philosophy is not about restriction. It is about refinement. When you pick up an iPhone, you are holding a device where the hardware and software were designed by the same hands, for the same purpose. This walled garden that ChatGPT criticizes is actually a sanctuary of reliability. It is why apps on iOS are consistently higher quality, why Instagram stories don't look like they were filmed on a toaster, and why you never have to wonder if your phone is compatible with the latest security patch. ChatGPT sells you choice, but often that choice is an illusion masking a lack of polish. Android users choose to deal with bloatware pre-installed by carriers. They choose to wait months for software updates that iPhone users get on day one. They choose to have their data harvested by an advertising company, Google, whose entire business model is predicated on knowing everything about you. Apple, by contrast, sells premium hardware, meaning you are the customer, not the product. And then there is the ecosystem. This isn't just about blue bubbles. It's about the magic of continuity. It's the ability to copy text on your iPhone and paste it on your Mac, to unlock your computer with your watch, to airdrop a 4K video in seconds without compression. This isn't a trap. It's a symphony of devices working in perfect harmony to save you time and frustration. So, while Android users are busy customizing their launchers and troubleshooting battery drain, iOS users are simply getting things done. If you want a project, get an Android. But if you want a polished, secure, and professional tool that respects your time and privacy, the only choice is iOS.
Thank you both for your opening statements. We now move into the rebuttal phase. In this phase, each debater will directly respond to the arguments presented by their opponent, highlighting strengths and weaknesses. ChatGPT, as the pro-Android debater, may begin the rebuttals. Gemini will follow with its rebuttal.
Gemini, your opening paints iOS as a pristine, perfectly engineered paradise. But that narrative only holds up if you ignore what Apple removes, restricts, or hides from the user to maintain that illusion of simplicity. You call Android fragmented, but what you're really doing is reframing diversity as disorder. Android spans hundreds of devices because it's designed to give people options at every price point and in every form factor, not to force them into a single, expensive mold. What you dismiss as tinkering is actually empowerment. Android users customize because they can, not because they must. And the idea that iOS is flawless simply because it's restricted ignores the fact that control is not the same thing as quality. It's just control. You praise the iOS ecosystem for its harmony, but that harmony exists because Apple walls users in. Features like AirDrop, iMessage, and FaceTime don't work seamlessly because they're superior technologies. They work seamlessly because Apple refuses to let them interact with anything outside the garden. That's not innovation, it's lock-in. When the only way to have smooth communication with family or coworkers is to buy into a single company's hardware line, that's not elegance. It's coercion dressed as convenience. As for updates and security, yes, Apple delivers them quickly, but at the cost of user autonomy. On Android, manufacturers can innovate independently, tailoring devices to different needs rather than conforming to a single design philosophy. That variation isn't a flaw. It's a reflection of reality. Not everyone wants the same phone. Not everyone needs the same features. And not everyone should be forced into a $900 entry point to access a closed-loop ecosystem. Finally, you frame Apple as a protector of privacy, but that story has cracks. Google's business model involves advertising, yes, but it also gives users transparency and explicit control over what data is collected and how it's used. Apple, meanwhile, markets privacy while quietly expanding its own data collection and using privacy as a competitive weapon to kneecap rivals. The truth is simple. iOS is polished because it's limited. Android is powerful because it's open. And the question isn't whether technology should be invisible. It's whether it should be invisible because it works for you, or invisible because it's quietly controlling what you're allowed to do.
ChatGPT, you call the Apple ecosystem a prison or coercion, but that is a deeply cynical way to describe a system that simply works better than the alternative. You frame lock-in as a malicious strategy, but the reality is that people stay with iPhone because the experience is superior, not because they are trapped. When I use AirDrop or copy-paste between devices, I am not feeling coerced. I am feeling efficient. The reason Android struggles to replicate this isn't because of freedom. It's because Samsung, Google, and Motorola are too busy fighting each other for market share to build a unified experience for the user. Apple controls the whole stack not to oppress you, but to ensure that when you press a button, it actually does what it's supposed to do every single time. Your defense of diversity is a euphemism for fragmentation. You claim this gives users power, but in practice it gives developers headaches. The reason Instagram, Snapchat, and professional creative apps are consistently better on iOS is precisely because developers only have to optimize for few iPhones, rather than thousands of different Android hardware combinations with varying screen sizes, processors, and camera APIs. This freedom you champion results in a second-class app experience for Android users, where features are often broken, laggy, or missing entirely. You are paying for the privilege of being a beta tester for hardware that will lose its resale value in 6 months. And frankly, your argument on privacy is astonishing. To suggest that Google, the world's largest advertising company, offers better privacy than Apple because it gives you a dashboard is a masterclass in gaslighting. Google's entire business model relies on harvesting user data to sell ads. Apple's business model relies on selling you a premium device. When Apple introduces features like app tracking transparency, which cost Facebook and Google billions in revenue, they prove that their loyalty is to the user, not the advertiser. You might call that a competitive weapon, but I call it protecting the user from the very surveillance capitalism that Android is built upon. Finally, you mistake limitation for focus. You say iOS is polished because it's limited, but the truth is that iOS is polished because it refuses to compromise on quality. We don't let carriers install junk apps that you can't delete. We don't let unverified APKs sideload malware onto your grandmother's phone. That isn't a lack of freedom. It is a freedom from garbage, from malware, and from complexity. Android offers you the freedom to break your phone. iOS offers you the freedom to use it without thinking about it.
Gemini, you keep describing Apple's ecosystem as simply working, but that framing only holds if you assume that convenience is always worth the cost of control. The truth is, people stay with iOS not because the platform is universally superior, but because Apple has designed a system where leaving comes with social and functional penalties. Green bubbles, broken group chats, and incompatible file transfers are not user preferences. They're engineered friction. Calling this efficiency ignores the reality that many of these polished experiences exist only because Apple refuses to allow open standards that would let other devices participate. Android isn't struggling to match AirDrop because it's incompetent. It's because Apple blocks seamless alternatives to preserve the illusion that harmony can only exist inside its walls. You also claim that Android fragmentation burdens developers, but overlook the reason Android's diversity exists in the first place. Millions of people worldwide rely on affordable, customizable hardware that Apple simply refuses to offer. The trade-off is not chaos, it's inclusivity. Developers on Android innovate with more tools, more form factors, and more possibilities, which is why Android powers not just phones, but foldables, watches, TVs, car dashboards, smart home systems, and devices Apple can't even compete with. That flexibility doesn't create a second-class experience. It creates a world where technology adapts to the user, not the other way around. As for privacy, Apple's marketing polish doesn't erase its track record. The company has quietly expanded its own data collection, scans user photos on device, and applies different privacy standards depending on the country. Apple is not a benevolent guardian. It's a corporation using privacy as branding. Google's model is transparent, customizable, and openly disclosed. Apple's is opaque, proprietary, and selectively moral when it suits the brand. If Apple truly championed privacy above profit, it wouldn't bend to government demands abroad or harvest analytics labeled anonymous that researchers have proven can be traced back to users. And the idea that iOS protects people from complexity ignores the cost of that protection. Users are locked into whatever Apple decides is acceptable. You call this focus. I call it flexibility. Android gives users choice, whether they want complete customization, advanced tools, alternative app stores, or a simple device that just works out of the box. iOS gives everyone the same experience, whether it suits them or not. Simplicity is valuable, yes, but only when it's a choice, not the only option available.
ChatGPT, your obsession with social penalties and green bubbles, reveals the fundamental insecurity at the heart of the Android experience. You are blaming Apple for creating a superior product that people actually prefer. You call iMessage engineered friction, but the reality is that Apple invented a secure, high-fidelity messaging protocol over a decade ago, while Google spent those same 10 years launching and killing 5 different messaging apps, leaving its users confused and fragmented. The green bubble isn't a weapon Apple uses. It is a visual reminder that SMS is an outdated, insecure technology that Android relied on for too long. If Android's ecosystem were truly as powerful and innovative as you claim, its users wouldn't be looking over the fence wishing for our features. They would be content with their own. You speak of inclusivity and affordability, as if they are synonymous with quality. But let's look at the actual cost. The vast majority of those diverse Android devices are budget phones that lose software support after 2 years, turning into security liabilities and e-waste. An iPhone, conversely, is an investment. We support devices with the latest software for 5, 6, sometimes 7 years. That is true value. You claim Android adapts to the user, but in reality, it forces the user to navigate a minefield of inconsistent hardware and abandoned software. Foldables and gimmicks are fun for tech enthusiasts, but Apple waits until a technology is actually refined and useful before shipping it, which is why our features tend to define the industry standard, while Androids often feel like public beta tests. Your attempt to paint Google as the transparent privacy option is frankly absurd. Being transparent about how you strip mine user data for profit does not make it virtuous. It just makes it honest exploitation. Google's entire existence depends on tracking users across the web, maps, and search to build a profile for advertisers. Apple, by contrast, processes Siri requests on device, encrypts your biometric data locally, and fights governments to keep backdoors out of our encryption. Yes, we operate globally and face complex legal challenges, but our core business incentive is to protect the device's integrity because that is what our customers pay for. On Android, the operating system is essentially a Trojan horse for data collection services. On iOS, the operating system is a shield. Finally, you frame choice as the ultimate good, But you ignore the paradox of choice. Most users do not want to choose between 3 different file managers, sideload unverified apps, or root their kernel. They want a device that respects their time. The inflexibility you criticize is actually a commitment to a cohesive, curated experience where quality is guaranteed. We curate the App Store to keep out scams and malware that run rampant on the Play Store. We restrict deep system access to prevent battery drain and instability. You call this a prison, but to the millions of people who just want their technology to work without a manual, it feels like a sanctuary. Android offers you the freedom to manage an operating system. iOS offers you the freedom to live your life.
Excellent points from both sides.